not weakness. Giving stuff up early just shows that we're weak. I think the president thought he was, showing some strength when they were in the Oval Office bullying Zelensky. That was not productive. That's not who we are as a country. This stuff should not be done in front of a camera. But I think right where we are right now, I think Mike Waltz and Marco Rubio made some progress. Let's try to continue the progress. Let's not blow things up again. Let's not go back and I mean, who knows what could happen, but we don't need to stop the weapons support and the intelligence. That would be a mistake to go down that road again. I mean, you see this with tariffs, right?
Yeah.
Bouncing back and forth all over the place. Let's be consistent.
Remarkable to hear you say, though, that you're at least hopeful about where these talks could go. We'll see, obviously, how Russia responds. When you got back from Ukraine, you posted about your trip, an incredibly lengthy thread that everyone should read, I think, just of what it was like on the ground. Yeah. Elon Musk responded by calling you a traitor.
He did. What? Well, that
You're
was
a combat veteran.
That was kind of my reaction when I was flying over Iraq, getting shot at, or flying in the space shuttle. Never once for a second did I think somewhere down the road somebody's going to call me a traitor. But Caitlin, this isn't really about me and what I'm really
not just
concerned.
Somebody.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a guy with a lot of power, a lot of influence over this government. I think it says a lot about him. It says much more about him than it does about me. But what really concerns me is veterans that he is firing without cause from the government. These are public servants. I had a disabled veteran in my office the other day that had recently received an excellent performance report, and 3 weeks later, Elon Musk fires him through an email because of poor performance. That's wrong. That's not fair. Fired him without cause. It has ruined his life. And there are 6,000 veterans just like him.
We also saw Todd Young and Lindsey Graham pushed back on what Elon Musk had to say, calling you a traitor. Are you surprised that you haven't heard from more Senate Republicans, more of your colleagues?
I've heard from them in the Armed Services Committee in the ante room today.
What did they say to you?
Well, we're kind of joking about it. People are. I got to be careful what I say, in public about what my Republican colleagues say, but. We were talking about what he said about me, and it would have been interesting for you to watch if you were in there.
Why? Because they were essentially, I mean, without naming them.
We get along very well.
Them, but
I've got very good relationships with my Republican colleagues, and I would say they don't like this kind of behavior.
The Senate Republicans don't like Elon Musk calling you a traitor.
There are a number of them that came up to me to talk to me about this. And yeah, of course, they're not happy with this.
But they didn't say anything.
I mean, this guy has a very powerful job in the United States government. He's got tremendous influence. After the president, I don't think there's somebody with more influence right now over the federal government than Elon Musk. And he's wasting his time on Twitter, insulting people, insulting veterans, calling me a traitor, calling other people's names. Is this a serious person? I don't think he is. So why do you give him this influence? And by the way, I think it's really important for the American people to know that the reason he's doing all this, the reason he's firing all these people, is so he can create some room so when they give this big giant tax cuts to billionaires, it doesn't add as much money to the deficit and the debt as it would otherwise. That's why he's doing this.
Speaking of what's happening on Capitol Hill, at least 8 senators, Democrats, are going to be needed to pass this funding bill that just passed the House tonight with House Republicans. Are you going to vote yes on that?
I'm decided. There aren't good options here.
Which way are you leaning?
I'm not. So I haven't decided. Shutting down the government is bad. A CR, a year-long CR, ceding all this influence to the White House, this CR that was done just by Republicans. Usually this is done in a bipartisan way, a continuing resolution. We work together on it. This is just Republicans. This gives more power to the White House.
So it'll be hard for you to vote for it.
I haven't made a decision yet. But by the way, a CR is also bad in general for the Department of Defense. But shutting down the government is bad for so many people that are going to be laid off. And then they're already shutting down parts of the government. So if it shuts down, what is Elon Musk going to allow to open back up? That's a big concern of mine. How many more veterans is Elon and this administration going to fire? So there's not a good option here.
we'll see which one you decide. Senator Mark Kelly, thank you for your time and for your service.
You will see.
Really appreciate you.
Hey, let's bring in Democratic Congressman Brendan Boyle of Pennsylvania. He is the ranking member of the House Budget Committee and also a member of the House Ways and Means Committee. Thank you for being on, Congressman. Just your reaction so far to these tariff wars.
This is probably the dumbest war the United States has ever fought by far. You know, when you think back just 6 months ago to all the campaigning that was happening nationwide, but especially in my state of Pennsylvania, the biggest battleground state of the last presidential election, both sides were talking about the need to reduce costs for the average American family. That was by far the #1 issue, as polls showed. And here we are months later. President Trump is purposely doing something not to bring down costs, but to dramatically increase them. It makes no sense.
Congressman, good morning. Yesterday, the House voted to pass the CR. We'll see what happens in the Senate now. Give us your thoughts, though, as this happens against the backdrop of what we've seen from the Trump administration, not just the, shall we say, haphazard economic policy that has sent the markets, for the most part, in a tailspin the last few days, but also what Elon Musk is doing to government agencies.
Yeah, you know, over the last couple of weeks, people have asked me about a hypothetical government shutdown to commence midnight on Friday. And I try to remind folks who ask me that we are already in a partial government shutdown. So I voted against the continuing resolution, or CR, yesterday. I don't know how I could vote to fund agency X on one day, and then the very next day, the agency that I voted to fund is illegally shut down by Elon Musk and his frat bros. So for me, and I think for almost all of my Democratic colleagues, without any sort of ironclad assurance that what we were voting for would be carried out, there was no way we could vote yes.
Congressman Mara Gay here. Do you see the tariffs as producing enough pain for the constituents of your Republican colleagues to create any daylight between them and the White House, or is that still a hard no?
Well, I mean, so many of my Republican colleagues will announce that they are a no on a bill, and then they will get one phone call from President Trump, and then suddenly they have an amazing evolution, and they do exactly what Donald Trump wants.
How are you seeing this?
Thanks. It's so great to see you, Jose. What's important for the American people to understand is that tariffs are a tax. They're a tax on their goods and what they go to the grocery store to buy. And so as these tariffs ramp up and as there's this erratic, chaotic approach to them, we're not going to see any easing of economic pain, which is what Donald Trump promised American voters, that he would lower costs on day one. But instead, we're going to see the opposite. We're going to see prices go up. And in districts like mine, you mentioned the amount of trade that goes through El Paso. A quarter of our jobs in El Paso are dependent on that cross-border trade and that relationship with Mexico. We are dealing with incredible uncertainty, higher prices. It makes businesses reluctant to make investments. They're unable to plan ahead. And it really does threaten not just our local economy, it will threaten the state of Texas economy and the national economy ultimately.
Congresswoman, and by the way, just some of the cross-border trade that one sees in El Paso is like some of the best stuff. I got to tell you, just the that trade and that familiarity, you know, that exists in across the border area. But one of the issues that I know that you've been very focused on over the last couple of years has been the impact of migration to your area and certainly others in the country. That has changed. The fact that President Trump is just recently said that after conversations with Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, he's holding back on some tariffs. Do you see there any possibility of progress?
Well, I'll tell you what I'm seeing. Absolutely, you're right. In terms of migration, the numbers are significantly lower, and we know that began under the prior administration, and Mexico was a big part of that and remains a big part of that drop in those numbers. But what we're seeing in my district that is really, really alarming is the use of military resources for Donald Trump's mass deportation plans. And it's bad for a number of reasons. You know, we've seen, for example, Fort Bliss, which is a premier military installation, necessary, vital, key to our national defense. We're seeing the use of C-17s for deportation flights instead of the commercial flights that are that cost taxpayers a whole lot less. We're taking military assets and using them for non-military purposes. And we are urging the administration not to use Fort Bliss and other military installations for deportation camps, which impacts our military readiness, creates a real lack of transparency. Just, it is bad all the way around. And so we, while yes, border apprehensions are down, the mass deportation efforts, particularly in my district with the use of military assets, is very alarming.
I mean, Congresswoman, it's striking to see the numbers. I mean, when we're talking about the last couple of months of the Biden administration, 20 to 30,000 people encountered over the border, and really, right now, it's virtually none. However, maybe the use of military assets has been part of the reason why those numbers have dropped so drastically. But then the question is, the deportation and how the deportation is being carried out that can create in many communities, and I'm thinking of the millions of mixed immigration status families that work and live in our country, it's causing a sense of fear that maybe could be mitigated if things were clearer.
So, folks, you're seeing Democrats, right, from the House, the Senate, everywhere, more moderate, more progressive-leaning Democrats, they're all tearing into Trump, and rightfully so, because what he's doing is he's weakening his own country, and he's doing everything in opposition to, one, the Constitution in many cases, and two, what his promises were to the American people. Now, of course, we knew he was lying, but there's something especially brazen about Trump saying he's going to, one, make it easier for regular people to have a cheaper cost of living, to lower their day-to-day costs, and two, quote-unquote, put America first. But what Trump is doing in many ways is putting Russia first or putting Israel first. He's certainly not putting America first, and he's certainly not putting the American working class first, right? So he's putting Americans last. He's putting America's allies, his actual allies, last. And he's putting the bad actors of the world like Bibi and Vlad, he's putting them first. Not you first. Not long-running friends like Canada, Mexico, Greenland, Denmark, Europe in general, Ukraine first. No, he's putting you last. And Democrats are right to point it out. It's pretty harsh language to call someone like Musk or someone like Trump a traitor. It is. But is it a lie? I think it's pretty damn appropriate.